Hello everyone! This is Saradraian Target welcoming you back to another Carnivores ranked video, where today we are going to be ranking all of the alien ceratopsians in the Carnivore series. You guys know how these lists work. I'll be using overall design, sound work, animations, lore, and other similar criteria to subjectively rank each ceratopsian featured in the more prominent Carnivores games and mods, from my personal least favorite to favorite. Alright, this was a tough list to put together. So without further ado, let's rank the Carnivore ceratopsians. Now before we get into the main list itself, I do want to give an honorable mention to Styracosaurus and Protoceratops, as both are technically located on the ceratopsian family tree, but lack basically all the distinctive features of ceratopsians. They have no frills, no horns, and walk bipedally, which makes them very hard to compare against a family of quadrupedal dinosaurs known for their horns and frills. Now, because they're so similar visually, I might rank them with the carnivores ornithopods when I get to that video, as an easy handwave explanation could be that the FMM representatives of these two dinosaurs are more closely related to ornithopods than ceratopsians, but in the meantime, I admit I'm not sure what to do with these two. However, because I know someone is going to bring it up, in fact, someone's already have, I wanted to go ahead and mention them here, with Styracosaurus ranked above Protoceratops for those curious. The Prote's gorgeous Martialine design and naturalistic sexual dimorphism is all wonderful, but the taco's smooth animations, chittery sound effects, nonchalant demeanor, and vintage design are just perfect for the retro alien world of carnivores. So, starting our actual list today at number 12, we have Carnivores Enchanted's Nasutoceratops.
Gotcha, didn't I?
Thanks to some fledgling roles in the Jurassic World franchise, Nasutoceratops is quickly becoming one of the more popular horned dinosaurs in pop culture, which makes it all the more surprising that outside of some ancient silent add-ons, the dinosaur hasn't had any established appearances in the Carnivore series until the relatively recent release of Carnivores Enchanted. And while it is cool to finally have this bull-horned herbivore in the alien world of carnivores, I think its initial outing leaves just a little bit to be desired. Enchanted's Nasutoceratops appears to be an edited Triceratops model, complete with all the warped stretching and blurry textures that accompany model edits. The animations are decent, and while I know it has idle animations, I have never seen them in-game, which makes the Nasuto feel very robotic and lifeless, as well as makes it frustrating to hunt and get footage of. Having color variation based on environment is a nice touch, but the colors of each variant are so harsh and garish, and although vivid colors are one of the mod's standout features, many of Enchanted's other brightly colored dinosaurs are beautiful. I just personally don't think the bright neon orange and green Nasutoceratops are among them. Ultimately, it is nice to finally have Nasutoceratops in carnivores, but I think it needs just a bit more polish to match its ceratopsian competition. And while I'm sure the current depiction is just a placeholder, for now, it comes in at number 12. Moving down to the number 11 spot is Carnivores Enchanted's other horned dinosaur, the draconic Saradraian. A main roster, advanced rank huntable ceratopsian is a classic carnivore staple, tracing its roots all the way back to 1998's initial hunting roster with Triceratops, of which Saradraian is actually a species. given a more unique colloquial name by dino hunt scientists to emphasize its more draconic features, like its spiked tail and skull, but most prominently, its fantastical ability to breathe fire, a defense mechanism it doesn't use often, but clearly advertises with the glowing ventilation slits in its throat pouch furnace. This is some bonkers lore that really makes me appreciate Saradraian, even if I personally find the dinosaur itself a bit lacking. It's using an older model with some fuzzy textures and some stiff animations, and while the neon pink is a bit too in your face for me personally, my wife really likes it. In fact, it's her favorite Carnivores animal that I've shown her so far, so that's gonna get some extra points from me. The sound work is really nice too, loud and bellowing and appropriate for a mythical, fire-breathing dinosaur. With some sharper texture work and smoother animations, I think Saradraian is really gonna shine as a unique FMM Ceratopsian. But for now, it's gonna have to come in at number 11. Taking the number 10 spot on our list is none other than Carnivores 2's infamous Chasmosaurus. If you've been around the channel a while, you probably already know my thoughts on the Carnivores Chasmosaurus. Replacing the iconic Burian-inspired Triceratops model from Carnivores 1 with an ever so slightly more accurate for the time model with copy and pasted stats while giving it the name of an entirely different dinosaur that looks nothing like its real-life counterpart or its retro paleoart influence has never sat well with me. In other words, I have a lot of in-principle complaints about Chasmosaurus, but by itself, I gotta give credit where it's due. The colors and texture work on Chasmosaurus are really nice, and I'd say this dinosaur's texture is up there with the Ceratosaurus on just how much it's been used as a base for creating so many different modded creatures and carnivore-style textures. And the dinosaur's abrasive, droning calls are so cool and such an improvement over the Triceratops. I even remember when I was very young and had just figured out the basics of editing the Carnivores game files, I swapped the Allosaurus and the Chasmosaurus calls in my copy of Carnivores 2, because A, they sounded so similar, and B, I wanted my favorite real-life dinosaur, Allosaurus, to have what I thought were the coolest calls in the game. Not to mention, FMM's Chasmosaurus does have a few subspecies adapted to various biomes across the dinosaur planet, like the warmer coastal jungles and the arid mountainous deserts, which helps nicely flesh out this dinosaur's role in these alien ecosystems. I still don't love FMM's Chasmosaurus. If I could go back in time and either change its appearance or outright replace it, I would. But as I've grown older and a little more mature, the fires of hatred have died down, and I can at least acknowledge its spot on this list at number 10. Coming in at the number 9 spot is the smallest of Primarchia's ceratopsians, the elusive Ashkaseratops. Like most Protoceratopsid dinosaurs, Ashkaseratops lacks traditional ceratopsid weaponry like horns and bulk, which makes it a relatively easy target for the larger predators out on the Victrian Badlands. To compensate for its lack of defenses, the small herbivores often group up to tag along with larger dinosaurs, enjoying the safety and scraps of their giant guardians while providing extra sets of eyes to watch out for danger. And while this is a unique social adaptation among the planet's ceratopsians, several of Primarchia's horn-faced herbivores have developed this behavior, lessening its novelty factor for the newly discovered Ashkaseratops and thus keeping it just a bit lower on this list. The dinosaur's animations are slow and sluggish, perfectly replicating the cumbersome movement of a squat, primordial reptile that needs to warm itself under the FMM sun. But the animations are few and basic, with very limited or non-existent idle sound effects. What really helps Ashkaseratops break the top 10 is its design. It is a model edit dinosaur, so the textures are a bit soft and warped in some places, but it just screams vintage Protoceratops with a healthy dose of that Carnivores grunge. I love the sharp cutters on the lower mandible, the pebbly armor covering its carapace, and the prominent fin running down its sturdy, segmented tail, all beautifully adorned in a rusted copper coloration. And although I expect the Ashkaseratops to receive a new model and texture at some point in the future, given that it is currently a model edit creature, I hope these design elements are carried over. Ashkaseratops is a cool little protoceratopsid with some great colors and unique design features, but its lack of sounds, basic animations, and general need of polish will currently keep it in the number 9 spot. Moving down to the number 8 spot is Planet Tranquility's newest ceratopsian resident, the hardy Helenorinus. Carnivorous dinosaurs dominated the bulk of the DinoCorp 7's cargo, perfect for attracting weary audiences to a traveling prehistoric zoo. But among the many predators were a few herbivorous dinosaurs now roaming the parks outside of Crater City, including the exotic sector's native Protoceratopsid, Helenorinus. A substantial glow-up from the dinosaur's spiritual predecessor back in the Middle Island days, the gorgeous Todd Marshall-inspired anatomy and colors fall perfectly in line with Cityscape's design philosophy, and the sexual dimorphism Helenorinus displays is a welcome treat, and another Marshalline staple, with males sporting bright blue bands for attracting mates. While the dinosaur's appearance is gorgeous, I do think the animations and sound work leave a bit to be desired, consisting mostly of just silently standing and silently eating. And I think some additional animations and sounds would go a long way in giving the dinosaur some character and helping distance it from the soulless robotism of its cityscape contemporaries. That said, the aggressive little ceratopsids are very fun to hunt, charging in from considerable distances and unintentionally using their head frills as shields to absorb incoming fire, which just makes me long for a custom kill animation should a pair end up overpowering the player. In addition, the dinosaur's name is a spectacular deep cut into real-life paleontology, being the designation of the more recently discovered Protoceratops species, which nicely and creatively differentiates this dinosaur from the established carnivores Protoceratops in-universe. Ultimately, dinosaurs like Helenorinus are why this list was so difficult to put together, because I love almost everything about it, but it does lack some important features that would put it higher on this list. So for now, it comes in at number 8. Taking the number 7 spot is the second of Primarchia's 3 ceratopsians, the diminutive Diceratus. As another small Primarchian ceratopsid, Diceratus spends most of its time grouped together with others of its kind or with larger desert-dwelling dinosaurs for additional security, like Acanthopholis and Rabdodon. And although many of the Pristine Kingdom's prehistoric creatures now travel in herds, Diceratus was among the first to pioneer this behavior in the earlier releases of Fallen Kings, which gives it extra points for both novelty and long-time association with the feature. Speaking of consistency, many of the mod's dinosaurs have undergone drastic aesthetic overhauls over the years, but Diceratus has maintained an enduringly wonderful design since its debut. An interesting array of colors naturalistically splattered over its short, rotund frame, complete with all the stumpy, rounded proportions expected on a more diminutive dinosaur. There's an almost Pokemon-esque cuteness factor to it. It's like a stylized interpretation of a baby Triceratops, which also earns it points on both uniqueness, compared to the grizzled gunch of most FMM ceratopsians, and just straight-up adorability. Despite its charming appearance, Diceratus is still a dangerous wild animal, which unfortunately makes me long all the more for a unique kill animation. Perhaps one that would utilize the dinosaur's clumsy mannerisms due to its squashed proportions to take down threats. This, like with Helenorinus, is ultimately my main gripe with Diceratus. Its design is wonderful, and based on that alone, I initially had it much higher on this list. But after spending more time with the dinosaurs in preparation for this video, its lack of both animations and sound effects hurts its overall score. Also a similar complaint to its desert-dwelling contemporary, Ashkaseratops. All that said, Diceratus is a fun little herd animal that I love almost everything about, but it just needs some more TLC in the sounds and animations department to really bring it to life. So for now, it comes in at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is Central West's towering Torosaurus. As a late Cretaceous contemporary to the similarly built but much more popular Triceratops, Torosaurus sometimes has difficulty stepping out of the trike's shadow, which shouldn't be hard, as the dinosaur's most notable feature is its elongated frill attached to its enormous skull, the longest of any terrestrial creature, and a feature the Carnivores depiction captures beautifully. Central West's Torosaurus is the spitting image of Burian's depiction, both anatomically and colorfully, even down to the subtle infusions of pink, green, and yellow strategically placed across the dinosaur's bumpy beige body. The animations are smooth and full of character, with lots of weighty pawing and digging as the animal searches for food and intimidates potential threats, all brought to life through some wonderfully appropriate and guttural sound work. If I had to nitpick, the shading and contrast on Torosaurus are perhaps just a little too intense. It sometimes quite brightly stands out on certain maps or in certain lighting. But what more concretely keeps Torosaurus out of the top 5 on today's list is its lack of proper integration into the world of carnivores. Every other ceratopsian on this list is well established into a specific mod or sector or environment. But as a standalone add-on, Torosaurus is simply a replacement for Chasmosaurus in Carnivores 2. Leaving it lacking just a bit in the world-building department. However, it is still a gorgeously well-realized dinosaur in its own right. And even though this mod just turned 5 years old here in 2025, I still think it holds up very well. So for now, Torosaurus takes its place at number 6. Breaking into the top 5 at number 5 is the third of Primarchia's 3 ceratopsians, the massive Monoclonius. With healthy adults weighing in at over 10 tons, Monoclonius is easily the largest of FMM ceratopsians, dwarfing even its iconic Central East relatives. Its gigantism necessitates a solitary lifestyle as to avoid competition for food in sustaining its mass, which is a common characteristic among FMM ceratopsians, but ironically a rarity among the pristine kingdoms breeds, which helps give Monoclonius that traditional brutish behemoth vibe of vintage ceratopsians, surviving in hellish environments while fending off nightmarish primordial predators. This visual and behavioral grit and grunge is one of my favorite aspects of this territorial titan. The other being its unique color variation between the jungle and desert-dwelling species. Whether foraging for food in the hazy depths of the Tarsinian Basin, or fending off predators out on the arid Erythraean Cape, Monoclonius is consistently colossal and consistently cool. It's also just incredibly fun to hunt. Battling a 10-ton steamroller armed with a huge facial sword that comes crashing through the jungle from miles away is always an exhilarating experience. And whether the fight ends in defeat or victory, Monoclonius is always an impressive opponent, even if the kill animation could use some more syncing up with the hunter model. What keeps Monoclonius at the entrance to the Ceratopsian top 5 is its sound work, an unfortunate constant among the pristine kingdom's horned dinosaurs. Instead of the natural, chaotic shuffle of hooved feet and hundreds of pounds of flesh as heard on other ceratopsians, the running footstep sound effects on Monoclonius sound a bit artificial. It's hard to explain, but it sounds more like a musical beat on loop than an actual animal charging through the brush. And while it does have environment interaction sound effects, it is still lacking in the vocalization department. Very little in the way of grunts, gurgles, and growls. And I think some more sound work would really add another layer of intimidation to this already impressive animal. Monoclonius is an awesome retro ceratopsian, just in need of a smidge more polish to really perfect it. So for now, it comes in at number 5. Moving down to the number 4 spot is one of the most unique dinosaurs on this list, Carnivores Legacy's protective Protoceratops. FMM ceratopsians are rarely social creatures. As seen so far on this list, pairs of Helenorinus will sometimes travel together, as will groups of Ashkaseratops and Diceratus with larger dinosaurs out on the plains, but it's not often to see huge gatherings of solely ceratopsid dinosaurs, which makes FMM's Protoceratops all the more special. These smaller ceratopsians gather together in large nesting colonies out on the Shmu-Hadron deserts, where they attentively care for several clusters of eggs at once, guarding them from both the elements and local egg thieves like Rhynchinia, which is such a wonderfully characterized interpretation of the real-life paleontological history between the numerous Protoceratops and the misunderstood Oviraptor. The social behavior of FMM's Protoceratops is beautifully brought to life with believable sound work. The dinosaurs huff, grumble, and bleat as they tend to their eggs. And with so many of these vocal caretakers all dutifully milling around together, each nesting site feels so convincingly like a living, breathing herd of animals. The Protoceratops' spectacular animations and stunning texture work further enhance their lifelike feel. Whether inquisitively alert or idly at rest, their bright green eyes, sandy scalation, and fluid movements create some of the most authentic carnivores creatures, so well adapted to their desert lifestyle. Despite their small size and sheepish appearance, Protoceratops are fiercely protective of their eggs, and if ambushed, will turn and attack any perceived threat, with a brilliant kill animation that I would love to see influence other smaller ceratopsians, like the similarly fin-tailed Ashkaseratops or the bristly Helenorinus, in later updates to their mods. Poetically, while Protoceratops is a protective creature, the dinosaur itself is a protected species, as Dino Hunt Corp has banned the hunting and harvesting of these small ceratopsids due to the harsh survival challenges they face in the Shmu-Hadron wastes, fining anyone caught in the act of hunting them with a hefty fee. This serves as both unique in-universe lore and as a cautionary gameplay feature. I remember hearing about accounts getting bricked back in the early days of Legacy because people unwittingly gunned down entire herds of Protoceratops. In fact, the only thing keeping Protoceratops out of the top 3 is that it's simply not a huntable dinosaur, thus limiting its overall impact across Legacy's hunting campaign. But everything else about it is spectacular, so it comes in at number 4. Breaking into the top 3 at number 3 is Carnivores Legacy's splintery Styracosaurus. Anatomically, FMM's Styracosaurus is a perfect mirror of Burian's depiction, with the high hunched back, thick dragging tail, and curvy namesake frill ornaments, all tied together with that prominent centrosaurine nasal horn set squarely in the center of its skull. The build is beautifully burly and retro, and the unique colors help give the dinosaur a life of its own. This alien Styracosaurus traces its roots all the way back to Carnivores' Sanctuary, where it sported a shimmering jade-shaded carapace before Sanctuary's discontinuation, after which the dinosaur was folded into Carnivores' Legacy, now boasting a brilliant deep blue hide, complete with the yellow and purple highlights still seen in Burian's painting. Blue is a tricky color to get right on larger animals without appearing cartoony or artificial, but the vintage texture and varied tones all help make Legacy Styracosaurus a beautiful stylization of Burian's work, nicely setting it apart from the other predominantly green and brown Central East ceratopsians. While not quite as large as Triceratops, Styracosaurus is still a decent-sized herbivore, and is one of the central sector's more aggressive inhabitants, giving it a personality that matches its intense silhouette while subverting its traditionally calm color scheme, and helping distinguish it further from the other horned dinosaurs it shares space with. The animations and sound work continue to bring this dinosaur to life, from the guttural, bull-like growls and bellows, to the woolly rhinoceros-inspired kill animation, and even the beast's fleshy dewlap swaying after forcefully uprooting food. Everything about Styracosaurus is polished to perfection. Ultimately, these last 3 ceratopsians could all easily interchange positions on a whim. But for now, I'm gonna put Styracosaurus in the well-deserved number 3 spot. Taking the penultimate spot at number 2 is what was for many of us our first introduction to these alien ceratopsians all the way back in 1998, and arguably the poster child for the Carnivores aesthetic, the terrifically intimidating Triceratops. For over 2 decades, FMM's Triceratops has stood as the bastion of bringing a certain Czech paleoartist's pleasing paintings to life in the digital world of Carnivores, boasting a beautifully recognizable retro reconstruction. I love Knight's Triceratops. It's monstrous and ethereal, but Burian's has such a natural, animalistic grit that action forms brilliantly captured for Carnivores, complete with the beefy proportions, warm tones of orange and brown, and rough, pebbly texture that makes this design so iconic. As the only dangerous herbivore from the original game, Triceratops has always carried a potentially threatening presence. It may flee when startled, or it may charge and fight, creating a uniquely nuanced gameplay experience that slots nicely between the harmless herbivores and the consistently cunning carnivores, even if the ceratopsian's simple kill animation was less than impressive. all that potential was finally realized with the trike's return in Carnivores Legacy, with the dinosaur now featuring some spectacular new animations. From a proper use of its horns to long-range broadcast vocalizations, and even some early morning stretches. Carnivores Legacy has breathed fresh life into this 20-year-old model and elevated it to new heights. Perhaps more impressive than Legacy's stellar new animations for the trike, to me anyway, would be the beast's reworked sound effects. It's no secret that I'm not the biggest fan of the Carnivores Triceratops' shrill, empty, blowing your nose into a tissue calls. It's just not what I personally want or expect from the most iconic horned dinosaur of all time. And I think the big, booming bellows of the Carnivores reboot trike sound much better. However, instead of outright scrapping the dinosaur's infamous sound effects like I might have done, the Legacy team reworked them, honoring what came before by blending in unique alterations and similar sounding calls that maintain the spirit of the Carnivores Triceratops, and help these new sound effects feel like natural extensions of the animal's vocalizations. I'm especially fond of this one. The dinosaur even utters some ominously deep rumblings now that, before I realized were being made by a Triceratops, I actually thought were coming from a nearby predator, further adding to its fierceness factor with intimidating threat displays.
Are you growling at me?
With all this praise, what keeps Triceratops out of the #1 spot are its bass calls. Unfortunately, they're just eternally intertwined with this alien beast, as well as, on a much more subjective, nitpicky note, a lack of variety, which I haven't mentioned much yet, but is actually something I think most dinosaurs on this list would benefit from. And I've waited until now to bring this up and highlight what this might look like with the Triceratops specifically, as I think additions like these would elevate the trike to nearly perfect proportions. For examples, I'd love to see either sexual dimorphism, varied horn lengths, unique frill patterns, or just randomly natural variations. Perhaps using the more purple tones as seen on certain renderings of Burian's artwork for older bulls, or even a Great Lake-specific subspecies, a precedent already set in Carnivores Legacy, just to further flesh out the world building a bit and put Legacy's second trophy slot to more unique use. All that said, the Carnivores Triceratops is a certified classic depiction of the dinosaur, now revitalized thanks to some outstanding work from the community, and definitely deserving of the penultimate place on this list. And the #1 Carnivores Ceratopsian, in my opinion anyway, is none other than Legacy's truly wondrous beast, the awe-inspiring Agathamus. As the first ceratopsian known to science for more than just teeth, Agathamus bears tremendous significance to the infant era of Dinosauria classification, with a grand name that, while currently associated with nothing concrete, still evokes a sense of mythic wonder, something the Carnivores' depiction of the creature captures beautifully. Carnivores thrives on retro reconstructions, and Agathamus is as retro as it gets. From its giant, armored build, to its imposing weaponized armaments, and even its rich, powerful bellows, everything about Agathamus feels so ancient and primal. Almost like an origin point for FMM's ceratopsian creatures, and I think that's what makes it so special to me. The dinosaur planet's Agathamus is often described as a combination of its Styracosaurus and Triceratops, And while I think that's in part true, I also think there's more to it than just that. Agathamus isn't just a mashup of two other dinosaurs, it's still its own unique creature, and one that truly feels ancestral. I can see all of the sector ceratopsians in Agathamus. I see the massive heft and bulk of Triceratops, mixed with the sharp visual aggression of Styracosaurus, and even some of Protoceratops's more curved edges and armor plating. So it's not just a Triceratops with some Styracosaurus horns glued on. It looks like a natural product of its prehistoric environment. I can also hear all of the sector ceratopsians in Agathamus. I hear the breathy bellow of Triceratops, mixed with the deep grumbles of Styracosaurus, and even the rich tonal bravado of Protoceratops, again affirming Agathamus as not just a Central East ceratopsian smoothie, but a genetic source from which the more common and well-known horned dinosaurs descend. Perhaps due to competition with the more common Triceratops, Agathamus is a rare dinosaur, which makes it exciting to find and hunt in the wild. The beast's elusive nature, coupled with its impressive size, massive skull, armor plating, and huge horns, also makes it a valuable trophy, while its lifelike animations, regal sound effects, and overall grand design make it a valuable addition to the retro alien world of carnivores. My only nitpick, as seen with the other dinosaurs on this list, would be a lack of variety, as I've seen some custom fan skins for Agathamus that I think would make, for example, a fantastic Great Lakes subspecies to pair perfectly with the green ancient temple breed. But otherwise, I think the mythic Agathamus is certainly deserving of the #1 spot. Alright, so there you go guys. This is my personal ranking of all the notable alien ceratopsians in the Carnivores series so far. And we will return to this list to update it as new horned dinosaurs are added and old ones receive changes. But now, I want to hear from you guys. How would you rank the Carnivores ceratopsians? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section below. Thanks as always for watching guys, you are all truly the best, and I will see you guys next time.